Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel, guys. So what I have for you guys today is going to be the return of my championship score prediction. So before we get into anything in today's video, guys, I must say a quick apology for actually missing last week's championship score predictions and the championship roundup. Basically, if you don't follow me on Twitter, I was just really ill last week, and so I just couldn't get a video out. There was just no way I was ever going to be able to do one with how I was feeling last week. But all is well now. I am feeling a lot better this week, and this weekend in the championship, it's a good week to go ahead and predict. We've got a whole lot of local derbies to go ahead and talk over this weekend, and we've got some massive games coming up in the championship. And as I was off last week, we actually had a lot go down in the championship. We of course had the conclusion of the transfer window. We saw Leeds sack their manager and go ahead and hire Paul Heckingbottom. Leeds and Barnsley fans, what do you make of that? In the comments down below, be very interested to know. As well as that, let me know down below, what do you make of your club's transfer business in the transfer window? I was going to do a summary video on what I thought of each club's individual transfer window, but as I was ill, I couldn't really get that video out. But nevertheless, guys, if you've not seen this series before, let me quickly explain how it all goes down. So every weekend, guys, I give you guys my championship score predictions for what I think the results will be with each game going on in the championship. FIFA 18 also makes their score predictions, but what I'm of course interested to know is what you guys have to say. So in the description down below, I'll leave all the fixtures that are taking place this weekend, and then you guys can easily go ahead and make your score predictions. And then if you do successfully manage to get any of your score predictions correct, I will include your comment at the start of the next video. So guys, without further ado, let's jump into some score predictions. So our first game to go ahead and predict is the game taking place tonight, guys. That is taking place between Millwall and Cardiff, and quite an interesting encounter actually. Two sides who at this point in time are on a very nice run of form. Both of them went ahead and won last week. Of course, Cardiff picked up that fantastic 4-1 victory over Leeds United, but in this game I don't see it being as easy. You know, Millwall are unbeaten now in their last 4 games, and at home so far this season have been a very hard team to go ahead and break down. And on their day, probably both these two sides do have very good defences, usually quite organised between them. And what I do see this game turning into is set pieces being quite important actually. Both of them playing with quite a direct style of play, and I can see these two styles going ahead and clashing together in this one. And of course, Millwall picked up a decent victory last time out against Reading, and for this one, I actually fancy these two sides to go ahead and cancel each other out. And so for this game, I'm going to go ahead and predict it to finish as a 1-1 draw, whereas FIFA saying this one will be 1-0 Cardiff. Then we do move on into the Saturday games, and the first of which being a very intriguing encounter. That is Barnsley, who go up against Sheffield Wednesday. Two fan bases who definitely aren't too keen on each other, and I really think this could be a very fiery football match, of course. Barnsley fans, I'll be very interested to hear what your opinions are on Paul Heckingbottom leaving, and where do you think that leaves you now for the rest of the season? Do you think that probably increases your chances of going down? But coming up against Sheffield Wednesday, this is a big opportunity for Barnsley to go ahead and show that they can still cut it without Heckingbottom in charge, of course. Sheffield Wednesday recently been under a really torrid run of form, of course. Their last game in the championship was a disastrous performance as they lost 3-1 to strugglers Birmingham and had 2 men sent off in that game as well, of course. Sheffield Wednesday, they're going to be coming into this game with suspensions, and pretty much a whole squad is out injured at the moment. And Barnsley, they're a funny side so far this season, you know. They have been creating quite a lot of chances lately. They've just not been really capitalising on that, and a few defensive errors here or there has been costing them games recently. But in this one, I feel like everyone's got to come together now at Barnsley and get behind this project from now until the end of the season to ensure they will survive. And I just get that impression that they may go ahead and do this one. So I'm going to go ahead and back a 2-1 home victory for Barnsley, whereas FIFA saying it'll be 2-1 Sheffield Wednesday. Then our next game sees Sheffield United go up against Leeds United. Once again, a really fierce game to go ahead and predict for this one. This, of course, will be Paul Heckingbottom's first game in charge of Leeds United. And Leeds fans, I'll be interested to hear from you once again as to what do you make of the appointment of Paul Heckingbottom, of course. Currently, Leeds find themselves just 2 points below Sheffield United, and both teams at the moment not in the greatest run of form, of course. We recently saw Sheffield United themselves slip out of the playoffs, and they'll be hoping to get back into that picture as soon as possible. But with a new manager coming into a club, you always seem to get that bit of a bounce, and Leeds will be desperate to have that. The way they've been performing lately has just been absolutely abysmal. Defensively as well, really has been a problem for Leeds lately, and their creativity going forward, especially since Sice has been out suspended, hasn't been anything to shout about. But with how Paul Heckingbottom likes to set up his teams, I do get that impression he will get that instant reaction from the Leeds players. Will it be enough to win this game though? I'm not so sure. I'm going to go ahead and back this one to finish as a 1-1 draw. Will be quite a good game to watch though, or if FIFA 18 is saying, it'll be 1-0 Leeds. The next game sees Bolton go up against Fulham, and so Bolton fans, of course, since I last did the video, we have seen Gary Medine leave the club on transfer deadline day, and that surely must limit Bolton's chances from now until the end of the season. Although saying that, they did put in a very good performance against Bristol City last time out, where it was Sammy Amiobi who managed to pop up with the winning goal. And what I will say about Bolton is they are quite good so far this season at limiting some of the bigger teams from playing their game plan, and so if they can implement that against this Fulham side, they may have a chance of getting something from it. But Fulham at the moment are without doubt one of the form sides in the Championship. They have just been steamrolling past teams at the moment, and to be honest, I really can't see anything past a Fulham victory for this one. If they can carry up this form from now until the end of the season, God knows where they'll finish. And I'd be interested to hear from you guys as to where do you think Fulham will finish come the end of the season. But for me personally, for this game, I'm going to go ahead and back a 3-1 away victory for Fulham. I just feel like going forward they'll have too much, whereas FIFA saying it'll be 1-0 Bolton. The next game sees Brentford go up against my club Preston North End in what could be a very interesting game actually, of course. Two sides who, in my opinion, still have an outside chance of going ahead and sneaking into the playoffs come the end of the season, of course. Both of us are going into this with a slightly lesser squad. You know, Brentford are going into this one without suspended Sergi Canos after Brentford have actually gone ahead and lost their last two games, and Preston recently have really shown an improvement, you know, since I last made a video actually. I was a little bit worried the last time I was making the video that Preston were going to slowly slip into mid-table mediocrity, but the game we had against Nottingham Forest about a week or so ago really seems to have rejuvenated our season. You know, our high-pressing football seems to have come back. We then backed that up with a victory over Hull, but the only doubt I have going into this game is that Ben Pearson is actually suspended for this one, so that's a little bit of a worry for me. You know, our midfield without Ben Pearson doesn't seem to play to that same intensity, and so we can't really allow our standards to slip, as Brentford are without a doubt a team that can punish you, especially when they're playing at home. So for this one, I'm going to fancy these two sides to level each other out. I'm going to go ahead and back a 1-1 draw, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be a 0-0. The next game sees Bristol City go up against Sunderland, and Bristol City, something just seems to be going wrong for them at the moment. They've only won one game in their last 5, and if you look at it, you know, not too long ago, Bristol City were really knocking on the door for automatic promotion, but since then they have seen themselves slip into 6th in the Championship and don't really look too far away from going ahead and slipping out of that with the way they're currently playing, of course. They seem to be lacking a little bit of oomph going forward, a little bit of that spark which we saw more of towards the start of the season. Sunderland themselves really don't find themselves in a good position, currently sat 23rd in the Championship, and one thing I would say about Sunderland is they are probably one of the most mentally fragile teams in the Championship, really. When they seem to go behind in the game, they don't seem to have that mental capacity to go ahead and get back into it. So I feel like if Bristol City take the lead in this one, then it'll just be lights out for Sunderland. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and back a 2-0 Bristol City home victory, although even I'm not really that confident in saying that, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be another 0-0. The next game sees Derby County go up against Norwich City, of course. Derby still maintaining that automatic promotion place, of course, but they do have Aston Villa really breathing down their necks at the moment, and it was a very impressive performance last time out from Derby as they managed to go ahead and put 3 goals past Brentford, but I don't see it being quite as easy against this Norwich side, who recently have actually been in a really good run of form actually, and when Norwich have that game-changing player in James Maddison, anything's possible for them really, and with Norwich being quite a frustrating side to go ahead and play against, they are that sort of side which I think is capable of stifling that Derby attacking force which has been so impressive this year. So for that reason, I actually fancy Norwich to go ahead and nick a point from this one. So for this game, I'm going to go ahead and predict it to finish as a 1-1 draw, whereas FIFA saying it'll be 1-0 Derby. The next game sees Ipswich Town go up against Burton Albion, and Burton fans have to be worried at this point in time as there does seem to be a gap forming now at the bottom of the table. Of course, Burton have gone ahead and lost their last 4 games, and with the way they're playing at the moment, I'm just not sure I can see this turning point in their season, which needs to come soon. You know, this run of results just can't go on for too much longer with where they are currently sat in the table. But an away trip to Ipswich isn't the easiest thing in the world, of course. That goal Joe Garner scored last week, by the way, was an absolute brilliant piece of technique from him, and so I do fancy Ipswich for this one. I don't see there being all too many goals in this one. Mick McCarthy's not really the sort of manager to set up a team to really go hammer and tongue at someone, so for that reason I'm just going to back Ipswich for the 1-0 home victory, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be 1-0 Burton. Then we do move on into another side who is quite struggling for form similarly to Burton at the moment. That is of course Reading, who do face an away trip this week going up against Middlesbrough, and both these two sides actually went ahead and lost last week, so they'll both be looking to bounce back as swiftly as possible. But for this one, I've got to fancy the home side at the moment. You know, with the way Reading are playing, I'm just not sure I can see them getting anything from this one. Of course, it is two contrasting styles going up against each other, with Tony Pulis still looking to implement this more direct style that Middlesbrough are looking to master at the moment, going up against Yapstan's Reading side, who just look really passive in their recent performances, especially going forward. I don't see them having enough to go ahead and break down this Tony Pulis side, who he's looked to make more organised each week, and so for that reason I'm going to back a 2-1 home victory for Middlesbrough for this game, whereas FIFA's backing a 0-0 draw. The next game then sees Nottingham Forest go up against Hull, and something just seems to be going wrong with Nottingham Forest at the moment. Of course, when Forest went ahead and beat Wolves, I thought that would really be a turning point in their season, of course, recently under new management of Aitor Karanka, but since then something just doesn't seem to be right there. You know, I watched the game they had not too long ago in midweek against my club, Preston, and some of the defensive mistakes were absolutely appalling to see, and I thought that would be the sort of thing which Karanka would look to be addressing from week 1, but there still is a massive job to be done at Forest. I think that's pretty clear to see, and the same could be said for Hull City as well, a team who is desperately struggling for goals at the moment. You know, I watched them play at Deepdale last week and they finished that game with only 1 shot on target, so I'm just not sure that Hull are going to have the goals this season to go ahead and beat that drop. Of course, they currently find themselves inside the relegation zone, and so for this one I could see this one heading towards a draw, but my gut feeling is that Forest just have to improve over what they've been showing lately, and going forward they have the players to break down this whole side, I feel like. So I'm going to go ahead and back a 2-1 home victory for Nottingham Forest, although even I'm not that confident in predicting that one, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be a 1-1 draw. Now the next game sees Wolves go up against QPR, and QPR, if I do remember correctly, they have already beaten Wolves this season, so if Ian Holloway manages to go ahead and pull the double over Wolves this season, then fair play to QPR and Wolves. But it is of course going to be a very tough game for them. Of course, we saw in Wolves' last game that they still have that spark going forward. You know, a couple of accusations were being thrown at Wolves, you know, that they were going to bottle it and everything like that, but they still remain 11 points clear at the top of the championship. And the one thing I'd say I get the impression from their manager Nuno is he's not going to be the sort of manager who's going to let complacency sneak into this Wolves team. And so going up against this QPR side, they can be quite a tricky customer to come up against QPR, you know, with the way Holloway likes to set teams up. He's a good man motivator for that odd occasion in the game like this, in my opinion, but with the added quality that Wolves had now with Benikophobe, especially going forward, I'm going to go ahead and back a 2-0 home victory for Wolves. I feel like they'll have too much for this QPR side in the end, but FIFA's actually going to say it'll be a 2-0 QPR. And then guys, we have our final game to go ahead and predict. Taking place on Sunday, we have the second City derby going on between Aston Villa and Birmingham, and I am very interested to hear your guys' predictions for this one. And honestly, me thinking about this video, making it all week, I've been changing my mind on this one quite a few times, but I do get a gut feeling for this one that it may be a bit of a disappointment as a match. Both of these two sides are coming into this one actually in a really good run of form. Of course, Aston Villa currently find themselves sat third in the Championship, only 1 point behind Derby County in second. And Birmingham last week with that 3-1 victory over Sheffield Wednesday, you know, players like Jota now seem to have found their form going forward for Birmingham. So I get the impression that both sides are coming into this one on such a high that we may be brought down to earth in this one. And I honestly think that it is going to be a 1-0 sort of game where one side will nick it late on in this one. And my gut feeling for this one does say it's going to be Aston Villa. I just feel like with that extra quality that they have, in my opinion at least, this season going forward, Steve Bruce seems to have found the formula for Aston Villa, which is finally now working for them, and I'm just going to back them for the slim 1-0 victory. I'm very interested to hear what you guys have to say about this one, but I'll say 1-0 Villa. FIFA's going to say 1-0 Birmingham. So guys, there you have it. That will wrap it up for this week's episode of my Championship score predictions. So do you guys agree with my score predictions? Let me know what they are in the comments down below. And if you guys have enjoyed the video, make sure you do leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. As well as that, make sure you do subscribe for some regular Championship content. Once again, apologies for not uploading last week, but we should be back to videos now on the regular. If you have enjoyed, make sure you do leave a like. But apart from that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.